Hi, everybody. We are here for week 2 of our remote learning, which means we are into the second section of our etude, which on all of the winds is going to be labeled as variation 1. Quick note for percussionists, I think most of you have figured this out at this point, but you've noticed if you're looking at the snare part, it does not have theme, variation 1, variation 2, and so on. It only has them divided by double bars. Okay, so if you're trying to still figure out where your sections are, you're looking for each double bar. So in the snare part, part A is the first 8 measures, and then you'll see a double bar, and then part B, and then another double bar, part C, and so on. So I'm looking at the trumpet part, variation 1, up there, as you can see. Now, this is certainly going to have more notes than our theme did, but truthfully, it's not going to be that difficult. You can look at it right away and see that it's pretty much just one pattern done a couple times. So all we have to do is figure out the pattern, and then we're all good to go. So what I am going to do is I'm going to start with playing it through beginning to end, just like I did in the previous video, and then I'm going to break it down so you can figure out how to practice it, and then at the end I'll play it through again. So I'm going to get my metronome going here. Metronome might be a little harder to hear. I have a little bit of a different setup today, but it's going there, and I'm still at 60 beats per minute. Okay? 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's variation 1. Now, let's break it down here, okay? So you can see, at the very least, there's one pattern that happens 3 times. You can see it in the first 2 measures, second 2 measures, in the next 2 measures, in the beginning of measure 13, that second system there. And then our last 2 measures is a little bit different, but still extremely similar. So we're going to focus on that pattern first, okay? Now, just like previously, we want to get into our rhythms first. It's 6/8 time, and we see a lot of 16th notes, which can be kind of frightening when you're just looking at it. But really, it's nothing to freak out about. In fact, if you kind of think of this as reverse cut time, okay? So instead of thinking of it in 6/8, maybe you think of it more as 3/4, okay? So in measure 1, or measure 9, I guess, in measure 9, if you think of the first half of that measure as being one full measure of 3/4 time, instead of this eighth note followed by a bunch of sixteenths, all you really have is 1, 2, and 3 and. That's it. And then the following 16th notes are all just 1 and 2 and 3 and. So instead of trying to count it out with syllables in 6/8, D, da 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 da, D, leedle, leedle, D, you could just think 1, 2, and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Okay? Now, should you go through and count this in 3/4 time? No, that would not be the way to do it, and it's going to cause some other problems later. I'm just trying to give you that as something to relate to when it comes to thinking 16th notes in 6/8 time. Okay? Bum, ba, 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 b, d, 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 d. Now, before we get too far into it, let's just take that rhythm and let's keep it on a concert F. I'll get my metronome going. So I'm just going to play the first measure plus a note all on concert F. And if you want to play that along with me, that would be a great thing for you to do. If you want to clap, whatever, just so you can kind of follow along. 1, 2, here I go. Okay, so that's the main rhythm, and you can see I get that in measure 9, measure 11, measure 13, and it's the same measure, the same rhythm in measure 15. Albeit that pattern keeps going up the whole time, it's still the same rhythm. That D da 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 D da 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 da. You want to aim for your downbeats here. In fact, I'll play that for you one more time. I'm going to make my downbeats even more obvious. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I'm at 60 beats per minute, but you can certainly put that at a slower tempo if you just need to work the articulation, which do not be afraid to do. You can see the ascending part of that pattern is always marked staccato. So going slow and making sure you have a clean articulation is going to be key. Otherwise, it turns into a sloppy tonguing. Nobody wants to hear that. Slow it down, make sure the articulation is clean before you try and speed it back up. So 60 beats is a good minimum, but maybe back it off to 50, even 40, whatever works for you, okay? Now, I also have here, I have those scale patterns going up and down. And again, I'm only focusing on the first measure right now because once I get that measure, I'm going to have half the thing figured out anyway. So I have the rhythm to that part. Fine, no problem. Now I just got to get the notes in there. And in this case, it's not going to be that hard once I figure out what scale I'm playing. So in the very first measure, I have a concert C major scale. It doesn't go all the way up. It only goes up to 6 before it comes back down. Okay? Now, for the music theory folk out there who are going, well, wait a minute, but it's in concert F. It is in concert F, and it would be more accurate to actually say, if you want to get fancy here, that it's more of a concert C mixolydian. If you want to look that word up, that's a nice one to know. It's a good Jeopardy word, mixolydian. But all that basically means, if I say a concert C mixolydian, what I'm really saying is it's concert F, but just starting on the 5th note. But to make it easier to follow along right now, I'm just calling it a concert C major scale that doesn't go all the way up. Okay? So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm just going to play that pattern in concert C major, not even going to worry about the rhythm right now. Again, C major, I'm just going up to 6. Then I can just start putting that in rhythm. And I might start a little slow just to make sure I have it. So I'm going to bring the metronome down here a little bit, maybe to 45. Now in this case, I do have that other note at the end, which in this case is a concert B flat, which isn't really part of C major, but I'm going to add it on. So it's the first measure plus a note in rhythm. And that's it. Now, I can see the same thing a couple measures later. Measure 11 in this case. Now, though, my key has changed from C to B flat. Oh, hallelujah, B flat. Nice and easy, because we have that accidental in there. So I just have a B flat going up to 6. And if I was adding on the first note of the next measure, I would have one more on there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in rhythm. Since it's B flat, I'm going to keep my tempo a little bit slow. I'm at 45, 2, 3, and. Again. One more. And then finally, starting in measure 13. Measure 13, same pattern, just got to figure out what scale I'm in. And in this case, I'm in a concert A flat major. Still only goes up to 6. These are all easy scales. Concert C, concert B flat, concert A flat. Easy keys. So I'm in measure 13 right now, doing the same pattern I was doing before, and I'm going to go ahead and add on that next note as well. 2, here I go. Little bloop at the end there, that's why we're practicing. So here's what I'm going to do. Since those are going to be the tricky parts, I'm going to take just the first measure plus a note. Then I'm going to do the measure 11 plus a note. Measure 13 plus a note. I'm not going to worry about connecting them yet. I'm just going to get those measures happening. So I'm still in my slower tempo, 45, but I'm back at measure 9. 1, 2, 3, and go. Next. Next. So I hope you hear that. I hope you hear it's just the same thing, just every time it moves down by step. I'm going to do that again just a little bit faster. I'm going to go at 52 beats per minute. Feel free to play along with me. 2, measure 9, and. Next. Next. That's it. I'm going to go and put the tempo up at 60 and try it now. Measure 9 at tempo. Here we are. 2, 3. Next. Next. And that's it. This is just scales. That's all it is. C major, B flat major, A flat major. That's all. Now, the last two measures, it's just a scale going up. And this is just a concert F major scale starting on the 5th note, starting on a concert C. Okay? So that one should be fine. Let's go ahead and do it in the same pattern, though. I'll slow my tempo back down to 45. And let's take the last two measures. Bum, ba, 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 B. 2, last 2. Again. One more. Same thing, a little faster. 2, 3, and. And let's go ahead and put it at tempo, 60 beats per minute. 2, 3. That's the key to this whole thing. If you can get that pattern happening in all the spots, this one is really going to be pretty easy to put together. Now, you do see a couple accidentals. So right up here in measure 9, 10, 11, measure 12, you have that concert B natural, so do look out for that one. Okay? But otherwise, it's all pretty straightforward. The connection measures, okay? Measure 10 and measure 14 do have the same rhythm. You can see in measure 10 there's that rest, there's that little space, whereas in measure 14 just below it we don't have that space, but otherwise it's the same rhythm. 1, 2, 1. That's all it is. So measure 10 versus measure 14. Only real difference there, other than the notes, of course, is just that space that happens in measure 10. But it's the same rhythm. 1, 2, 1. Piece of cake there. Now, there are a couple tricks that you have to look out for. There's a couple things in here that are kind of sneaky that will get you if you're not looking out. If you notice, measure 9, measure 11, and measure 13, they all go straight up that scale. It goes right from note number 1 to 2, 3, and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's all. But take a look at the last two measures. you can see that that note, where am I? Right there. Those notes are repeated. It doesn't just keep going. And your brain is already going to be set in this pattern of play the first note and then go directly up. But in those last two measures, they try to trip you up. That's there on purpose. It's there to see who's paying attention, who's going to notice that note gets repeated there, and it's the only time that happens. So do be on the lookout for that. That's going to be the trickiest part, okay? You know, it seems like such a small thing, but be on the lookout for it. Okay, we do have some dynamics here. Luckily, the dynamics, for the most part, all are very logical. We have those hairpin dynamics, the quick up and the quick down on the scales. I'm at measure 9 right now. 3 and Makes total sense. Measure 11. Again, makes total sense. You do have that crescendo at the end of measure 12. Okay, so you're going to want to get that. I'm now playing 11 and 12 together. Now, this is the part when we get into the phrasing. You might remember from last week's lesson in the theme, we have that crescendo, and we don't want to breathe at the top of a crescendo. It kind of messes up all of your musical momentum. And if you can do it, I would recommend that you, again, push through that crescendo. Take it through to measure 13. But look out, because measure 13 is now piano. It's not that same forte dynamic pushing through, which means if you did need to sneak a breath after that forte, you probably could, since you have the big dynamic change anyway. I wouldn't recommend it, but I think you can get away with it here. I'll play it for you 2 times. So I'm starting in measure 11, and I'm going to play it the first time into measure 13 with no breath. And the second time, I'll go ahead and sneak a breath in there. So here's measure 11, first time, no breath going into 13. So no breath. And now here it is, sneaking a tiny one just before measure 13. I think you can do it. I think you could get away with it. The danger is going to be if you do take a breath there, the danger is going to be that your breath is too big and then it throws off your rhythm. For example. It's too big a breath. Now I'm out of time for the rest of it. So if you are going to take one, it just needs to be a very quick breath, just enough to get you through. Okay? Also notice this one's a little different. In the theme, the last 2 measures, we had a decrescendo. It backed away. In this case, we take that crescendo all the way through to the end, all the way up at the top of the scale. Okay? So, let's do it this way. I'm going to take the whole thing at a slightly slower tempo. We've already gone through and broken it down. We did the first 2 measures, we did the next 2 measures, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and play the whole thing. I'm at 45 beats per minute. You can play along with me if you'd like. It'd be a great idea. And then we'll go ahead and go a little faster, and then we'll get up to 60 beats per minute, okay? So here's 45. 1, 2, beginning. Here we go. Gotta hold that last note out long enough. Speeding it up, kind of a midpoint. I'm at 52 beats per minute now. 52 if you want to play along. 1, 2, 52. Here we go. And 60. This is our minimum tempo that we're really shooting for. And 1, 2, 60. out there who'd like to take it a little bit faster, remember that tempo only says 60 plus. This is 70 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3. All right, there you go. So, to review, make sure you have the scales figured out. Make sure you have your rhythms figured out. D, da, 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 dee, da, 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 da. That's our rhythm that we're really looking at for the entire way through. Scales, rhythms. Do watch out for your breathing. Watch out for your dynamics. Okay? Watch out for the change in the pattern. Remember, measures 9, 11, 13 all goes directly up and down, whereas measure 15 here has that repeated note to start. Okay, so watch out for that. Please feel free to ask questions if and when you have them. Otherwise, go ahead and get working here on variation 1 at whatever tempo you need to make it sound good. And if you start feeling good about it, wouldn't hurt to start looking ahead to variation 2. There's going to be a few more things going on there. So, good luck in your practicing. Let me know if you have any questions, need any help. Good luck.